Hello, everyone. Ladislas Maurice from thewanderinginvestor.com. So today we'll be discussing how to obtain residency in Italy. Look, generally speaking, moving to Europe is relatively easy if you're doing it illegally or if you have a job offer. But for people who want to move there independently, moving to the European Union is becoming ever harder. So today we'll be discussing how to move to Italy, which is a country that actually few people discuss in this space because it's very poorly marketed and everything's a little appears to be a bit complicated. I mean, just like Italy, generally speaking. And then we'll be discussing some of the very interesting tax incentives. So this is really primarily for people from non-EU countries, though the tax incentive part is for EU people as well. So, Nicolo, how are you?
I'm very good. What about yourself?
Good, good. So Nicolo is based in Italy. He has a team of lawyers and CPAs, and you've been helping hundreds of people move to Italy and take advantage of various tax incentives. So, Nicolo, can you please tell us what are the main ways to move to Italy if it's not related to getting a job or marrying someone or, one of those? Just, I'm independently well off. I want to enjoy life in Italy. I want to move there. I don't have an EU passport. What are my options?
All right. There are quite a few options, and one just came out recently, which is the digital nomads visa. It's currently in progress, but finally released. There are various ways to move to Italy as a self-employed, as the director of a foreign company, which can be easily your company. If you make investment like the golden visa, or if you have enough passive income sources. So the whole point is what is the best strategy for you depending on your current status. And sometimes you need to adjust before moving. So you need to review your wealth and your income structure and your employment or self-employment basis. The first easy option in regards to the timeline is the investor visa. So it's the Italian golden visa, and you have various investment options. You either invest 1 million in government bonds, or you invest 500,000 into a private company paid up capital, or 250 if the company is a startup. What people tend to overlook is that you may as well invest into approved Italian government funds, or funds approved by the Italian government, meaning that those funds can be private equity, can be monetary funds, can be startup funds, etc., etc. But the advantage is that they are traded on the market. So you put 500,000 there, depending on market condition. After the 5 years, you can easily divest and get all your money back.
So
So
cool. So you still have to create a company and buy these funds through the Italian company, or can you just buy these funds directly in your name?
you don't need to have a company. You can
Okay.
buy directly in your name. So it's like an investment brokerage account, which then you have to put your 500,000 and buy those funds, which are traded on the Italian stock market, and they're not just related to Italian stocks or Italian assets. They can also invest in non-Italian assets. So that is sufficient to satisfy the golden visa requirement.
That's
Golden
fascinating.
visa less.
That's fascinating. So essentially, you can just buy a fund that is investing in U.S. stocks or just gold, whatever gold mining companies or whatever, 500,000. This gets you your golden visa.
That is correct. Of course, it depends on your risk appetite,
Yeah.
and that becomes a financial question. But at least those are not um, private companies, so it's easier to get the money back in the future, or at least it's more flexible option.
Look, this is really interesting, because everyone's marketing Portugal, even though Portugal's absolutely not interesting anymore, and the funds are mostly garbage. This is actually, a genuine investment. You can choose whatever you want, and it's not just clown funds that were structured by seedy lawyers sitting in Lisbon trying to, sell essentially crap to people. This is a genuine investment. So. I mean, objectively, it's really interesting. It's completely undermarketed. So you can qualify your spouse, your underage children as well.
Well, this is a little bit, it's a two steps process because there's one applicant for the golden visa, then family members, so spouse plus children under the age of 18 or up to 24 if they are in college, or parents 65 and upper. They qualify as they tag along. So the first step, the main applicant moves to Italy. By the way, if you are from a country that has a visa waiver with Italy, like the United States, Australia, United Kingdom, the whole family can move along on a tourist visa. Main applicant makes the investment, claims residency, and within the 90 days, the family tags along under the family reunification or family cohesion.
Fascinating. Cool. So that's the golden visa, essentially, and it's valid for 5 years. What happens after the 5 years?
Well, it's valid for 2 years, renewable for as long as you keep the investment. Upon reaching the fifth year, you can convert that into the EU permanent residency. So at that point, whenever you get a EU permanent residency, you can divest the fund, or at least, I mean, you can keep the fund if you like the type of investment, but it is not necessary to have it in order to retain that type of residence permit.
So to be able to work towards permanent residency, do you need to spend a minimum amount of time or be a tax resident, etc., during temporary residency? So my question is this essentially, can you use this as just a paper residency to work towards permanent residency? Or do the Italian authorities expect you to actually spend time, pay taxes in Italy before you can apply to permanent residency?
Well, the renewal requirement for this type of residence permit are A, have a place to stay in Italy. So you need to have a residential place. You either own real estate or you rent real estate. So it's not a PO box address, it's a genuine residential property. Then you need also to retain the investment. Now, it makes a little different if you claim children who should be in school. So if children are in school, they have to go to school in Italy. They cannot go to school anywhere else. So in that case, they need to spend time and they need to have a guardian in Italy. But if you don't have the problems or your children are grown up, yes, you can. There's no minimum stay requirement. In order to renew, you need to show that an investment is still active at the time of renewal, and you need to show that you have a rental or a property that you claim residency at.
But what about to get permanent residency status? Because there it's not a renewal, it's applying for a different status.
Well, let's go. There's no, that's based on the type of residence permit you had. So as long as you satisfy the requirements of the old residence permit, then you can move into the permanent residence. Just an example, digital nomads visa requires you minimum 28,000 euros of income per year to renew that. Well, you need to have that in order to claim the permanent residency.
Okay.
So different is if you have the representative office route, which is directorship self-employment. Well, the minimum income is 8,000 euros. So yes, you need to have that in order to claim the permanent status. So it depends the route you come from.
Okay, cool. Interesting.
Well, albeit generally speaking, you need to acquire tax residency to Italy. You may also claim coverage under a double tax treaty between Italy and your home country, but being covered under that and assessing the situation normally takes a lot of legal efforts and still doesn't screen against dispute from the Italian tax office in the event of an investigation.
Cool. So people need to be very careful if if they're trying to get the permanent residency without being tax residents in Italy, they're walking on a minefield that will at least cost them a lot in legal fees and with no guarantee of outcome in the end. So people just need to be careful with that one. So it's just safer to think, or it's not to think, it's just safer to run with the assumption that you'll have to pay taxes in Italy if your objective is to get permanent residency. Is that fair to say?
Well, that's fair to say, and especially what I cannot stress enough the importance of a good tax planning when moving to Italy, because if you can combine tax incentives plus restructuring of your income sources, you may not end up in paying high taxes at all. Italy is a nominally high tax jurisdiction, but practically, with all the write-off, incentives to move, et cetera, your effective tax burden may be lower than you would expect, at least compared with other European countries.
Yeah, we'll discuss taxes in the second part of this interview a bit later. Okay, so we discussed how to get residency through the golden visa. The digital nomad visa, you said, is 28,000 euros a year. It's active income, so essentially any job that gets you 28,000 euros a year and you're good.
Correct. It's self-employment or employment income sources, and you need to prove that at least 6 months proficiency in your profession as. But by the way, they talk digital nomads and remote workers.
Okay.
So self-employed and employees, and you need to make 28,000 and prove you can perform your work remotely. So it's fairly hard if you are a nurse. It's I think it's easy. Well, actually, nurse can also do consulting via video call as we do, but probably this is more targeted to individuals working with a laptop, consultants, marketers, or even accountants and lawyers. So
And
that
that's
is more feasible.
and that's open to any country?
Correct. There are no country restriction. The only restriction is the amount of income and the high skills in the professions.
Cool. And you can help people with that application from A to Z.
Correct.
Cool. All right. So that's the digital nomad visa, which is really, really interesting. I mean, that's one good way of moving to Europe for people who want that, especially combined with the tax incentives we'll be discussing. Um, and then there is when you're the CEO, you're the founder of your company back home, and you create a representative office. Can you elaborate a bit on that route?
Correct. This is, I would say, an alternative route. So basically, we call it the representative office visa, but generally speaking, it's a self-employment visa granted to individuals with a registered profession or SILA or directorship at the local Italian Chamber of Commerce. So, what's the easiest level to achieve that? If you have a non-Italian company, you can create a representative office, so you're registered at the local Italian Chamber of Commerce, and based on that, you can claim a long-term self-employment visa to move to Italy to basically run the Italian office. Now, this is not a permanent establishment, it's just a representative office. So the requirement is to have a limited company outside of Italy, create the representative office, and transfer yourself, or, well, as a director of the Italian entity, to obtain a transfer. And the company needs to be running for at least 1 year. So the foreign company, not the Italian office. And you have to pay yourself 12,000 euros. So a dormant company doesn't work, a company in liquidation doesn't work, a company that is subject to bankruptcy doesn't work, or a partnership or charity. It has to be a limited LTD, LLC, and at least make 12,000 euros. So how can you pay yourself a salary of 12,000 if you don't even make it?
Cool. Okay. So you need a real company back home that's actually functioning, and then just create the representative office, and even if it's not very active in Italy, correct?
Correct. In fact, the representative office does not need to make money, cannot make money. It's just a way basically to expand the business and potentially in the future create a local permanent establishment or set up a new company. But for the sake of immigration, that is sufficient to secure a self-employment visa. The
Cool.
only countries disbarred are countries that do not belong to the WTO. So on top of my head, I have Serbia, Algeria, Iran, North Korea, and most of the Pacific islands. But
Cool.
most jurisdiction, I would say 85% of the jurisdictions in the world qualify.
Can you be, for example, whatever Canadian with a US LLC applying, or does it need to be a company in your country of citizenship? Or can it be any?
Well, technically you can. The biggest problem is that whenever you walk at the Italian consulate to request a visa, they may not approve that because they cannot check documents outside of the consular jurisdiction.
Mm,
So Americans have to apply for with a. It's easier if they apply with a US LLC, Canadians with Canadian LLC, UAE residents with Dubai LLC or Abu Dhabi. So that's the only issue. Technically, you can, but for practicality, better if same country, same company in the same country where you apply.
cool. Fantastic. And then, as with all these visas, after 5 years of actually living in Italy, you can get permanent residency, and then another 5 years, so 10 years, you can apply for citizenship, essentially. That's for all of
Correct.
them.
All the visa carry the right, well, they can then tag spouses and children using family reunification or cohesion. All the visas, apart from the digital nomads, allow you to register for the Italian healthcare for free. So you don't have to be covered by private health insurance. So that's another advantage, especially the American audience
Yeah.
is very interested in. And well, another type of visa that we've been working is in the event you're claiming Italian citizenship. So if you have the documents to apply for Italian citizenship, you don't have to wait for the Italian consulate outside of Italy. You can move to Italy, claim residency, and if your stay extends 90 days, you can claim for a temporary permit, which then, of course, whenever they grant you your citizenship, you're done. But that is also another route to move to Italy, which we are seeing more and more people interested in.
That's brilliant. That's really brilliant. Cool. And then the last one is the elective visa. So that's for people with passive income.
Correct. So basically, you can define passive income as pension, rentals, royalties, financial income such as dividends, capital gains, interest. Basically, any type of income that is not from employment or self-employment activities. So it's 31,000 for one applicant, 37,000 for two applicants, and then increases of 5% for any further applicants. And if you can prove those income sources, normally through your income statement, tax return, etc., you are granted a 1-year visa, which is then renewable up to 5, so it can lead to permanent residency. But you still need to maintain that sufficient income. That visa is non-convertible. So all the visa we discussed before, you can enter on a self-employment and then move into employment. For instance, if somebody hires you, or a different self-employment category. Elective residency, you have to remain under that, and you cannot undertake employment or self-employment activity. So you have to think on the top in Italy, correct. So you have to think whenever you move to Italy, you just reduce the type of activities you can perform. So if you're interested in starting your self-employment, I wouldn't recommend to start on this route.
What if you move on that one and do self-employment, but overseas? Can you still essentially live in Italy, get paid for through a UAE or US structure, and then, declare the tax in Italy? But like clearly you're not working in
but then
Italy.
the position is not freelance, has to be through a company so you can obtain dividends. So it's a little bit trickier to structure, but yes, you can.
Fantastic. So many ways to move to Italy. Thank you, Nicolo. Now let's go into the interesting topic of tax incentives, of which there are many in Italy. Some of them are really interesting, and those apply to EU people as well. So for non-EU people, the first step is figuring out how you move to Italy. So that was part 1. And now part 2 is which tax incentives can you benefit from. So the first one that we constantly hear about online, blah, blah, is essentially the 100K flat tax a year. Can you say 2 words about that one?
Yeah, so this is similar to the UK resident dom. Basically, you pay 100,000 euros of tax against all your non-Italian income. So income sourced from outside of Italy, you pay 100K, you're good to go. Unlike the resident dom, you don't pay further taxes if you move that money to Italy. So you have foreign income, you pay 100K, then if you want to take that money and buy anything in Italy, you're good. You don't have to pay further taxes. Another advantage is that that also excludes CFC rules. Basically, if you pay yourself a dividend, or if you make money through a UAE company or a BVI company, or any jurisdiction, any tax haven, well, you don't have to report any non-Italian asset. And if you receive income from a company or from a jurisdiction affected by CFC rules, well, those are disallowed because for the flat tax purpose. And this regime lasts up to 15 years. You can hop off anytime. Of course, once you hop off, you cannot hop back on. But this is very interesting, and any family member can be tagged along even later. So let's say I moved to Italy. Well, I'm already in Italy, but let's say you moved to Italy, and then in 5 years, any of your family member does, well, they can be tagged along. Of course, the maximum period is 15 years for the main applicant. So the second applicant exhausts that alongside you, but yes, they can be tagged along. So, and they need to add 25,000 per individual tagged.
All right. So for people with a lot of income, at least $1 million, I mean, they can end up living in Italy, enjoying life, and paying less than 10% taxes. I mean, that's really attractive. Cool.
Correct. So, or you can use that as a bridge. For instance, you may have a large private pension fund that is outside of your home country, and then you can wrap it up and pay your whole complementary fund while in Italy. You pay 100K, you're good to go. So, and then the year after, you just have this after-tax money, and you can use it freely. So that can also be an option.
All right, very interesting. Thank you. Let's move on to the tax incentives for people moving to little villages and towns in the south of Italy. Can you elaborate on that? Or
correct. That's
various
the
parts of Italy?
Correct. So that's the 7% pensioner scheme. So basically, if you were not a resident of Italy in the last 5 years before moving, and you move into a municipality with 20,000 inhabitants or less located in the south, and you were a resident of a jurisdiction with which Italy had a double tax rate in place, for 10 years, for up to 10 years, your whole income, so pension plus other non-Italian income sources, are taxed at flat 7%. So pension plus capital gains, rentals, royalties, whatever. 7% flat for 10 years. No, you don't have to report your foreign non-Italian assets. So this scheme is quite interesting, especially for capital gains. So if you realize a large capital gains and receive a pension, you can claim 7% on the whole bundle. So the whole game here for the flat tax and for the 100K flat tax and the 7% is to restructure your income in a tax efficient way that 7% or 100K is the only tax you pay on.
And that's for people that are retired, officially retired.
Well, they need to receive a private or public pension based on their local system. So for instance, they may not qualify for Social Security in their home country, but the fund they contributed into, they may pay at 50 years of age. So may still be working, but they have one pension income source.
Okay. Make sure to download my free ebook, 12 Mistakes to Avoid When Investing in International Real Estate, which you can find on my website, link below, and feel free to follow me on Instagram @TheWandering Investor. I look forward to hearing from you.